Guys doing? All praise be to the Most High God. The Most High God comes first. So there's a lot of misconceptions about Michael Jordan, the Bulls. There's a lot of misconceptions. And this stream is brought to you by L.I.V.E products. L.I.V.E, live now. We're live now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just show you a snippet of uh, the Bulls playoff series and how impactful certain players were on the team, the Bulls. Every time we talk about the Bulls in the 90s, we think of Michael Jordan, which is cool. Michael Jordan, of course, the face of the NBA, very spectacular, dynamic player. Um, but as Phil Jackson corrected Michael Jordan so correctly, and that's why he kind of reduced how much he scored. Phil Jackson saw that Michael Jordan was doing whatever he wanted on the team, and he needed discipline because what Phil Jackson introduced to the team was something called the triangle offense. And in order to conduct that, where more players get their hands on the ball, more players get to shoot the ball, Michael Jordan would have to score less. And on top of that, you have to listen. And it took some going for Michael Jordan to listen to that and to start playing that particular type of format. But the important thing to understand is that Tex Winter on that team, and you can see I have a picture of the entire Bulls team during the uh, first three-peat, 1991 to 1993, in which I consider that team to be the best Bulls team out of the two teams. And I know you guys may disagree with me because you look at stats, but I'm looking at how they played together. I think after their loss against the Detroit Pistons in 1990, which was a devastating loss for them, they started training together. They used to be in different cliques, according to Stacey King, and they literally started training together as a unit. All of them went to the gym together. All of them hung out together. They ate together. They trained together. Of course, the training, they all met to train, but then they would do additional training together and so on. They worked as a unit. And if you ask me, the best flowing, blessed playing Bulls team I'd ever seen, I would think it would be the 1992 Bulls team. I know we're going down memory lane for some of you, but in 1992, I think they had a record of 67 and what? I don't know. I can't remember. It's 82 games, so whatever the residue is there, 62 and I think it was 67 and 15 or something like that. And they probably could have had even better run, but Bill Cartwright thought the season's run is not that important as if you're the number one seed in the East, that's what matters, and that you really concentrate most of your efforts and energies to the playoffs. So that's where it really counts. It's good to have a great season, but the idea is to win the championship, right? So anyway, I thought I would talk about this a little bit. So I'm going to show you something. I want to show you something. Everybody always thinks the Bulls were no good without Michael Jordan and blah 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 blah. But I'm going to show you something because Phil Jackson got it. Uh, Tex Winter got it. Um, Doug Collins was a great coach and everything, but Phil Jackson understood what was necessary for the Bulls to win. And you can't just have one player, a major player, in which you're always throwing the ball into. I was listening to Scottie Pippen's interview on Stacey King's Hot Sauce, and what drew my attention was the fact that Scottie Pippen so correctly, and this is the same thing I've been talking about in previous videos about there's centric basketball and then there's decentralized basketball. And centric basketball means send this ball into this particular player. And if that player decides to kick it out to other people, fine. But decentralized playing which is like the triangle offense, is where players are constantly in motion. And depending on the player who's in best position to score, that player gets the ball. So it has nothing to do with uh, focusing on one particular play. All the players need to be up to their game. All the players should be able to shoot the basketball properly. All the players should be able to defend properly. So it puts a little bit of equal responsibility on each player. Now, even though Michael Jordan's key and primary purpose was to score for the Bulls team, I want to show you something. They became world champions, right? This is a championship run. I want you to watch at the distribution of points on that team. Look how evenly distributed it is, right? Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan have round about the same amount of points, right? Horace Grant and Bill Cartwright have around the same amount of points. These are the major scorers for the team. Then you have B.J. Armstrong, who comes after. And then those little points by Stacey King, Greg Hodges. These are guys coming off the bench with limited minutes, right? B.J. Armstrong, Will Perdue, Cliff Livingston, Dennis Hobson, Scott Williams. I don't think Scott Williams was played in the whole game, so he didn't get any minutes whatsoever. But the point is, I'm making is that those points count towards a championship. When you're playing championship games, every point counts, right? John Paxson scored 2. And I'm talking about scoring alone. Notice that the overall score is 105 points. The Bulls score 105 points. I want to show you something. When it comes to the Phoenix Suns, look at this. Look at this. They only score 92 points, but Charles Barkley scores more than both Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen. He scores 34 points. But he has nobody else that's an equivalent to him scoring the same amount or less. There's a Kersey Hawkins and Andre Turner, a Munut Bull. They all score around 10 points, just like the second grade scale, kind of like what the Bulls had. But he had nobody comparable to him to score to be able to compete with the Bulls. The point I'm making is when you're playing team basketball, there will be a relatively equal distribution of opportunities to score by different players. The players who play the offensive, uh, primarily the offensive part of the game, they would be the forwards, the center, right? They're the major scorers, right? Sometimes the point, one of the points, okay? So obviously they're going to have more points. And then if you're coming off the bench, if you're a reserve, obviously you'll have less points unless you're given more minutes. So you tend to see starters have more points than people who are coming off the bench, right? But what I noticed is because of the triangle offense, the distribution of points is very equal. That is to say, BJ Armstrong came off the bench, but he has 9 points. Okay? He has 9 points. Okay? Will Perdue, Greg Hodges, who's a great shooter of the ball, but he was on the bench. Stacey King, they have around about the same amount of points for 3 to 5 points, as well as Dennis Hobson. Right? They were actually playing in the game. The point I'm making is because of the triangle offense, you get an equal distribution of points. I get, of course, for the time that you're there. The starters were Paxson, Cartwright, Michael Jordan. But if you look at Paxson's minutes, well, he had 23 minutes, so I'm not quite sure what happened there. Stacey King only had 15 minutes, Greg Hodges as well. BJ Armstrong had 25 minutes, so he had a lot more minutes. But remember, he's a point guard. It depends on what your position is. Point guards are not required to score a whole bunch of points. Jordan's an exception to the rule. He was a point guard, but he was sort of like a point guard forward. And he wasn't really a point guard, actually. He didn't carry the ball up the floor most of the time. With a triangle offense, he would end up there. It's either BJ or Pippen carrying the ball up the floor, right? So He just had to be in position to score. But he was, I'll say this: Michael Jordan adapted. He received what Phil was doing. He was still selfish. He was still a ball hog in many respects. He still wanted the ball to shoot the final shot, whatever. But at the end of the day, he absolutely changed as a player a lot more from what he was. And obviously, in the last dance, we see his ball hog mentality: me first. It's all about bettering me, showing up again. But it is what it is. Okay, that's who he is as a person. Now, can he change? He could probably change a little bit more, but he's not. He's never going to fully veer away from what he is. So anyway, that being said, he's an incredible player. Now, the point I'm making is a lot of people like to say Michael Jordan. Without Michael Jordan, the team, the Chicago Bulls, wouldn't do well. I'm going to show you something. I'm going to show you something. Okay. So if we look here at the Philadelphia 76ers, they scored 92 points, right? Chicago Bulls, 105 points. Okay. That means the Bulls won by 13 points, right? If Michael Jordan wasn't in that game, he wouldn't have contributed 25 of those 105 points. Realize that the rest of the Bulls, they scored 76 points. Michael Jordan only scored 29. The rest of the points, the 76 points that remained, came from the rest of the team. And what a lot of people don't realize, again, it's based on position, of course. Bill Cartwright, that 14 points of Bill Cartwright. Let me go into the different players for a reason, okay? Because nobody talks about these players. And okay, Bill Cartwright was one of the leaders in the Bulls. His nickname was Mr. Bill, Teach, Dollar Bill, Medical Bill, Billy Idol, and Invisible. Okay, he was a center. Bill Cartwright, when he was on the New York Knicks, put up 25 plus points every single frickin' night. Okay, he was one of the major leaders for the New York Knicks. He had been on many different teams. He was a veteran. He was the most senior member of the Bulls, and he was a great center for the Bulls. He was an anchor. Now, here's the very important point for you to understand. Bill Cartwright was almost unplayable because of the way how he had the array of skills he had. He didn't have to be in the paint. He could shoot from outside. He was a great shooting guard. I'm sorry, great shooting center. He was a center. He could shoot from outside. He could shoot in the paint. He could score in the paint. You know, he could do it all. Okay. And the thing about Bill Cartwright was, you feed him the ball, he's unselfish. He would feed somebody else the ball if necessary. All right. So he was incredibly athletic, incredibly skilled. Okay. I very rarely I said Bill Cartwright miss a shot. You know, and Bill Cartwright went up. The experience he went up against guys like Jerry West, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, uh, you know, Larry Bird, all these greats. He had played against them, and names that you guys don't know about. He played against these guys, Julius Irving and Dr. J. So he had a wealth of experience. And Bill Cartwright was one of the major scorers on the Bulls team. Okay, he was a pivotal player in the Bulls team, and to this day, the man carries himself with dignity. The other player is Horace Grant. Horace Grant was the major rebounder for the Bulls. If you look at his rebounding stats here, you blow it up here. This is Horace Grant right here. Total rebounds. Look at TRB, his total rebounds. And you'll see Horace Grant out-rebounded everybody else, right? He had 3 offensive rebounds and 6 defensive rebounds. No, understand this is the playoffs. And Jordan had great rebounding stats as well, defensively at least. But that wasn't he wasn't the best rebounder on the team. That was Horace Grant. Okay, Horace Grant had replaced Charles Oakley, and Charles Oakley was a major rebounder for the Bulls. And Jordan and Pippen uh, came in to support Horace Grant. So if you collectively added all the rebounds in the game between these three, they were the major rebounders for the team. You got Charles Oakley numbers, right? You got, if you look at this here, 20 rebounds, which is what they needed. So Horace Grant would give you, like Scottie Pippen gave you 6 rebounds defensively. Jordan would give you 5 rebounds defensively, and then Horace Grant would give you the other 9 rebounds, 3 offensive and 6 defensive in this game. Now, you'll notice that Michael Jordan, he didn't score 50 points in this game. He only scored 29 points in this game. And he didn't need to score 50 points in this game because Scottie Pippen, Horace Grant, Bill Cartwright, and B.J. Armstrong carried the weight of scoring. And not only that, but when you don't have to go to one guy all the time, it opens up the options for your offense. So what you find is that instead of having one guy scoring a whole bunch of points and the rest of the team not scoring anything, you see that even Dennis Hobson, who came in a few minutes, Stacey King, you know, Will Purdue, these guys got their hands on the ball and were able to score. John Paxson not as much, even though he had more minutes, but that happens. Instead, he had more assists. When you look in the assist category, Scottie Pippen has the most assists, right? Because Scottie Pippen is mostly the point guard. BJ and Scottie, they're assisting in people scoring, right? So not only is Scottie out there scoring, but he's also assisting people in scoring. He's also setting up plays for people to score. Okay, so that's the thing about Scottie Pippen. A lot of people don't understand. Scottie Pippen's doing a whole bunch of other things besides just scoring. And I'm not saying Michael Jordan wasn't somebody who was helping him out with that. For example, Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen has 7 assists. Jordan has 5 assists, right? But what they're not taking into consideration, uh, you know, I'll go into that in a minute. But what they're not taking into consideration is when Scottie Pippen also passes the ball, because Scottie Pippen's a guy that passed the ball a lot in games, and that has nothing to do with assists. Okay, so the thing about the triangle offense is it moves the ball around, and I'm tell you this so that you guys understand basketball better. The fastest way to score in basketball is not to run down the court with the ball. It's to throw the ball. It's to pass the ball to somebody down court. That's the fastest way to score. And so passing is a very important part of basketball. Now, Michael Jordan was a franchise player. He was the face of the NBA. He was, flashy. You look at the guy jump, very athletic. He's just beautiful to watch at poetry in motion. But what a lot of people don't understand is both Horace Grant and Scottie Pippen, and to a lesser extent, Bill Cartwright, could do everything that Michael Jordan was doing. And they were all bigger than him. They were all taller than him. Scottie Pippen was longer than Michael Jordan and taller than him. Horace Grant, 6'10". Bill Cartwright, 7 foot and change. All fit guys. And Bill Cartwright on other teams was a major scorer on those teams. Horace Grant was a major scorer on the Bulls, and Scottie Pippen was a major scorer, but not just a major scorer. He was also a guy who directed the traffic, both defensively and offensively, for teams. So you have to understand Scottie Pippen's role versus Mike, and he needed help. So Michael Jordan would double the team or whatever it needed. Michael Jordan also did whatever was necessary to help in a different way to Scottie Pippen, but nonetheless, he did. Okay, so let's not get it twisted here. Okay, but what I'm saying is that there's this inflated view about Michael Jordan that he could have won championships without that Bulls team, and he could have done this and that, and they needed him, and but we already know in 1994 the Bulls made it to the Eastern Conference semifinals, and they were robbed of the opportunity to go to the Eastern Conference Finals, and probably even robbed when you think about it. They may have even gone to the finals and may have even won that. We don't know because, it never happened. But the point I'm making is that the Bulls performed tremendously well without Michael Jordan in 1994. Okay? Playoffs. How is that possible? I will tell you how. Michael Jordan per game, after he bought into the triangle offense, scored on average about 33, 35 points a game. The Bulls, when Michael Jordan left, gained two other players in exchange for Will Perdue, who wasn't there anymore. Or was Will Perdue? I think Will Perdue was still there, but he left eventually. But there are two other players that came to the team, and that would be Steve Kerr and Tony Kukoc. There was still Horace Grant there. So when Jordan left, Tony Kukoc and Steve Kerr came together to make up the points that Michael Jordan was no longer able to score. And even when Michael Jordan came back, he had some games where he wasn't scoring like he should have, especially when he was wearing number 45. And these people carried the brunt of the scoring, which when Jordan actually left, it opened the door for Horace Grant and B.J. Armstrong to put up bigger numbers. But my point is, when people say the Chicago Bulls was, Michael Jordan, okay, yes, the Bulls were built around Michael Jordan. Duh. Okay? And Jerry Krause is responsible for that and his scouts. Okay? Having said that, though, and yes, Michael Jordan got all kinds of contracts and all kinds. You see him in advertisements. He was a big name and all of that. But all of those endorsements and all of those, advertisements and the Wheaties and all of that stuff that came with Michael Jordan, all the fanfare that came with him, wasn't going to win him a championship. He had to play with competent people who knew how to play the triangle offense. And so their first championship was decided by, there was a number of heroes in that first championship, right? Unsung heroes. And I always feel like if you're going to talk about the Chicago Bulls, talk about the Chicago Bulls. I remember Mr. Malone correcting an interviewer when they said, Mr. Malone, how did it feel to go up against Michael Jordan? And he was like, you mean the Chicago Bulls? You do understand that we went up against a team, not against an individual. And that team had different elements in it that allowed us to exploit. And then there were certain elements in it that was able to defeat us, right? Because again, the Utah Jazz, everybody talks about Stockton and Malone. But then you had Russell, right? You had uh, um, Cornersack, and so many others, right? So just how you talk about the Boston Celtics, yeah, Larry Bird's in the fourth round, but you also talk about the other players, or just how you talked about the LA Lakers. You would say, oh yeah, Magic's there, but you also got Kareem, you also got Byron Scott, you also got James Worthy, you also got AC Green. Wow, why is it with the Chicago Bulls we only talk about Jordan, 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 Jordan? That centric view to me really shortchanged the team and how good that team really was. And we don't discuss the individual players that contributed to it. It wasn't just Michael Jordan. Yes, Michael Jordan, just like Magic Johnson, just like Larry Bird. Yes, he was the superstar, the big lights in action. You gotcha. But he wasn't greater than anybody else because it's a team. So when you mention the Chicago Bulls, especially if you're talking about the first three-peat, you're talking about Scottie Pippen, Horace Grant, Michael Jordan, Bill Cartwright, B.J. Armstrong, John Paxson. You got to mention those guys. And let's not forget, Greg Hodges. That man was like a marksman. When last did you see Greg Hodges ever miss a three? The guy was like a fucking glove. You know, he get fouled and that shot still landed. 3-point play, Greg Hodges. Then you had Stacey King. I don't know too much about Cliff Livingston and Dennis Hobson, and of course, the one, the only Scott Williams, who also played as center to replace Bill Cartwright. Of course, Will Perdue, who didn't score that much, and he was abused a lot by Jordan, but was pretty clinic when he needed to be. He was a little bit a little bit the oddball out there, and I guess it's because he was being abused. But he give you rebounds. He still marked guys. He'd foul guys. He make sure guys didn't just have a clear part to the rim. You know, and he had size. So I wanted to point that out, and let's just go through some other games here, and you will see the same pattern. This is the Chicago Bulls versus the Philadelphia 76ers, the second game in that series, and the Bulls shut them out again. And look at these figures again. Look at these figures. Almost identical. Scottie Pippen now with 23 points, Jordan with 29. The last game he had 24. Almost identical. 29 points. Horace Grant has 11. Bill Cartwright has 13. John Paxson this time he's in the game, so he scores 10. Then you have B.J. Armstrong, Will Perdue, Greg Hodges giving you a 8, 8, and 6. This time they score even more, 112 points to 105 the last time because Paxson, he's in the game this time and he scores. You see, it's a team effort. Yes, the major scores were Pippen, Grant, Jordan, Cartwright, and Paxson. And sometimes you get BJ in the mix. Those were the major scores, but you just never know. Somebody could come off the bench and light up the whole place. Will Perdue had a good night. He had 8 points as a center. He had 5 rebounds. That's crazy. 1 assist and 1 block. Will Perdue had a fantastic night against the Suns. You know, and this is all I'm saying. I'm saying that a lot of people think that this is an individual sport or something. This is not. This is a team sport. This is why Scottie Pippen says that he doesn't believe in the greatest of all time as a one given player because that player, as much as you say that, this is not an individual sport. You can say that for boxing. You can say that for tennis. You could say that for martial arts of some kind because that person's not playing with anybody else. But in team sports, you don't have greatest of all time. You can have the greatest team of all time. That you can have. But you can't have the greatest of all. That's why Scottie Pippen said, "I'm the greatest of all time." Remember me as the greatest of all time. And any team member of the Bulls could say that. You get what I'm saying? Anyway, the point I'm making is Jordan only scored 29 of the 112 points, which means the rest of the 112 points was scored by the rest of the team. You see what I'm saying? Now Jordan played his role. He was a scorer for the team, right? A major scorer for the team, right? And he had 9 assists, 1 steal, 1 block, 1 turnover, right? I think he had 4 points off of free throws, and he had 8 boards. He had 8 rebounds. Scottie Pippen out rebounded Horace Grant this time, but Horace Grant had more offensive rebounds. Jordan had 1 offensive rebound, 7 defensive rebounds. Horace Grant had 7 offensive rebounds, 3 defensive rebounds, and Scottie Pippen had 11 defensive rebounds. He had 6 assists, he had 2 steals, he had 5 turnovers, he had no blocks, right? And he still has to carry the ball up the floor and distribute it. Okay, let's talk about some of the players here. Scott Williams. Scott Williams is still early in the game. He's not really doing much in the playoffs. He doesn't really have a lot of minutes. Scott Williams has 1 minute of play. So in that 1 minute of play, Scott Williams was able to make 2 points. That is, he got 1 shot in the game. He was able to. He had 1 turnover. He had 1 block in the game. and he had 1 rebound in the game. So in 1 minute of play, Scott Williams was able to do all of that shit. That's amazing. Stacey King, I don't think he had any minutes. Did he have any minutes? Yes, he did. He had 5 minutes in the game, and he was able to score 3 points. 2 points. Sorry, my bad. 2 points. Will Purdue, he had 14 minutes, and Greg Hodges had 11. Greg Hodges was able to score 6 points. Will Purdue, 8 points. B.J. Armstrong, he had the most time. He had 16 minutes. He was able to score 8 points. This is remarkable. I mean, you think for the amount of minutes he had, if he could keep that up, because it's about 45 minutes, that's like 3 times that. So 3 times that, he would have scored 24 points if he was just regularly scoring, right? So I'm just showing you the bench put forth something. It had a deep bench, and also you had the starting lineup that performed. Everybody had double figures. And that's always very important. Okay. All right. So I just wanted to point that out. Now I'm going to talk about individual players a little bit. So the 76ers are able to win one game against the Chicago Bulls. Okay. They were able to beat the Chicago Bulls, keep them down to 97 points. Let's see how. So Scottie Pippen had 22 points. Michael Jordan had 46 points. He had 46 points. They still lost. Why? Horace Grant put up 10 points. Bill Cartwright didn't score that 14 points that he usually scored, nor did Horace Grant. John Paxson, he didn't show up and score either. And B.J. Armstrong either wasn't in the game, or if he was in the game, he didn't put up anything. So you see, scoring a whole bunch of points doesn't win you the game. So Jordan scored 46 points, right? And the rest of the team scored 52 points. See what I'm talking about? Pippen put up normal numbers. Jordan put up more numbers than usual. 46 points, and they still lost. You see what I'm saying? It's about distributing the ball and getting people confident and getting people shooting. You don't have to score as much because the burden's not on you anymore. It's on the team. The Bulls win 101 to 85. Watch the distribution of stuff. Scottie Pippen has 20 points, less, but Horace Grant has 22 points. He has a massive game with massive amounts of rebounding. Michael Jordan only has 25 points. Look at that. So that ball was distributed quite well amongst the three biggest scorers on the team. Bill Cartwright had a decent game, a quiet game. He had 7 points, and John Paxson had 6. So they didn't have as much points as they usually did. But they also played less minutes. It's also very important to understand. B.J. Armstrong came up with his 8 points as usual. And Will Purdue, he had 4 points. Greg Hodges, he had only 5 points. And Stacey King and Dennis Hobson, they didn't have much time. Stacey King actually got more time. But the point is, they were able to beat the the Philadelphia 76ers. Sorry, I keep on saying the Phoenix Suns, the 76ers. They were able to beat them because the distribution of points, people scoring, different people scoring. Okay, this was the last game, and they beat them again 4-1. And the score, the Bulls only. Oh, sorry, my bad. That's the 76ers. Charles Oakley was on the 76ers. I didn't even know that. They scored 100 points to the 76ers, 95. So they didn't beat them by 5 points. Michael Jordan had a massive game with 38 points. Scottie Pippen had a massive game with 28 points. Cartwright had a modest game, and Horace Grant. Michael Jordan had a ridiculous rebounding game. He had like 19 rebounds. He out rebounded Horace Grant and even Scottie Pippen. And he had a lot of defensive plays. So that's interesting. Cartwright, the other players. Again, the distribution of scoring is not, it's not the best. You know, Jordan ended up doing a lot of things he probably shouldn't have been doing. So, but there you go. Uh, you get better and better games depending. Now they move to the next round. They're facing the Detroit Pistons, right? And they beat the Detroit Pistons 94-83. Okay. Isaiah Thomas only scores 11. Mark Aguirre and Vinnie Johnson, they put up some huge numbers, 25 points for Mark Aguirre and Vinnie Johnson 21 points. So the major guys like Isaiah Thomas, Joe Dumars, Bill Lambert, they're not scoring shit. This is crazy. So when we look at the numbers, look at this. Michael Jordan only scores 22 points. Scottie Pippen has 18 points, which is much less. Bill Cartwright has a massive game with 16 points. Horace Grant only has 8. B.J. Armstrong has 9. Cliff Livingston has a massive game with 8 points. Bill Purdue has 6. Greg Hodges has 7. And why that's massive is because he only had 11 minutes and he scored 7 points. Okay? Scott Williams didn't score anything. So the point I'm making, though, is in contribution to the score, Michael Jordan's 22 means the team scored 72 other points to get that 94, right? Much bigger than 55 or 50 something, right? So the point I'm making is 52, I think it was. So what the point I'm making is the more you distribute the scoring and you can reduce the opposition team's scoring, is the greater chances of winning. It's not about scoring a whole bunch of points. It's a team effort, so you don't need to be dependent on one player all the time. You see, this is what Phil Jackson brought to the table, and this is what a lot of people just don't get and don't understand. Let me show you a little bit more here. So playing the Detroit Pistons, Jordan has a 35 point game. Scottie Pippen 21. That's his usual thing. Horace Grant has 13. John Paxson has 8. Bill Cartwright has 7. He doesn't have as much points as he usually does, but they still beat him. B.J. Armstrong has 8. B.J. Armstrong's been around that figure for a while. So this is not the best playing I've seen the Bulls play because it's, again, the scoring is kind of lopsided. It's more towards Jordan. But when they're really firing on all cylinders, Jordan and Pippen have about the same amount of scores. Horace Grant and Bill Cartwright, they have huge scores, and John Paxson's in the double figures as well. That didn't happen this time. The distribution of the scoring is kind of lopsided. But they still managed to win, probably because of the defense. Again, they sweep the Detroit Pistons. This is a higher scoring game. Jordan has 33. Horace Grant has 17. That's really good. Bill Cartwright has 13. That's what I'm talking about. Scottie Pippen has 26. And the only reason why Jordan needed that 33 is because John Paxson didn't pull his weight. He only had 6 points. B.J. Armstrong also didn't pull his weight. He only had 7 points. This is why. And this is the sweep. They sweep them. And this looks really almost good. This looks pretty good because you have 5 players in double digits. That's always a good thing. And look how evenly distributed the scoring is. Almost like the first game. Pippen has 23, Jordan has 29, Horace Grant has 16, John Paxson has 12. Bill Cartwright's the guy now that doesn't go into double figures, which is kind of surprising. And Cliff Livingston, he makes up for Bill Cartwright. So if your whole entire starting lineup has double figures, that's really good. That means you're scoring really well. and they actually had 115 points. Um, the bench didn't really show up this time, but the major starting lineup showed up, except for Bill Cartwright and Cliff Livingston. All right, let's talk a little bit about these players. So Cliff Livingston, who is Cliff Livingston? Cliff Livingston is known as Good News or House. He's a power forward. Uh, Points per game, he scores 7 points basically a game. He'd give you 5 rebounds, and he'd give you an assist per game. All right, so Cliff Livingston, he was in 1982 all the way down to 1984. He joined the Detroit Pistons, and he gave during that time. He gave 7.3 points. Then he went to Atlanta, 1984, all the way down till 1990. He was with Atlanta, and on average, he he actually improved. He had like 10 points a game. In 86 to 87, he had 8 points a game, and then 87 to 88, he had 10. Then he had 9, and then he ended up with 7. So on average, he had like 7, I guess. Then he joined Chicago in '91, and he had 4 points a game. So he wasn't a major go-to scoring guy, but he was kind of part of the bench. But he was a good scoring guard. So it's not surprising that when we look at him here, he scored 10 points in the game. That's not surprising, really. He stepped up his game to assist the Bulls in winning. So that's Livingston. Let's look at the other. Now the major scorers for this team were Bill Cartwright. Like I said, his name was Mr. Bill Teach, Dollar Bill, Medical Bill, Billy Idol, or Invisible. Okay, he was a center, a really good center at that. He scored 13 points per game on average. He had 963 games. Uh, he had 6 rebounds and 4 assists. And he was an NBA champ. And he was a one-time All-Star player. Now, Stacey King. Stacey King was also a center and power forward. Well, I know it was power forward. 6'11", so he's really tall. He had 6 points per game, 3 rebounds, 1 assist. He's a three-time NBA champ. Mm-hmm. All right, Stacey King. Now he came into the league, I think the year before, 2 years before, and won a champion 2 years after. A very funny guy. He has his own podcast, but he's awesome. Right. Let's talk about the major guys who scored for the team. So we already talked about. Uh, Give me a second. Let it come. Let it comes. Okay. Let me try refreshing. Oh wait, it doesn't want to refresh. Oh my goodness. Wow. We got a little problem, ladies and gentlemen. Now, just in case you guys don't know who these guys are, so from left to right, we're going to start. Bulls number 14 is Greg Hodges. Bulls number 5 is John Paxson. Bulls number, what's that, 54? That's Horace Grant. Greg Hodges has the basketball in his hands. Scottie Pippen is Bulls number 33. Number 23 is Michael Jordan. Number 10, Bulls, is B.J. Armstrong. That's Jerry Krause you're watching out there. This is Dennis Hobson, I believe, Bulls number 2. Stacey King is Bulls number 34. Will Perdue is Bulls number 32. Uh, Scott uh, Scott uh, Scott Williams is Bulls number 42. Bulls number 35. This is hold on, I'll tell you his name. Come on, goddammit. Cliff Livingston. Cliff Livingston is Bulls number 53. Now in the backcourt, I don't know everybody here, but I can tell you that this gentleman here is Mr. Tex Winters, and of course this guy here is Bill Jackson. Those are the coaches for the Bulls. Okay, so all right. Let me just talk about the scoring guys. So B.J. Armstrong. B.J. Armstrong was also known as the Kid. He was a point guard. He shot threes. He's 6'2", 175 pounds. And he scored in his career 10 points, one, uh, two rebounds, and he had 3 assists per game. John Paxson, Mr. Clinic. John Paxson was a shooting guard as well, but he didn't usually carry the ball up the floor. The Bulls believed that there was a weak part in the defense. They need to strengthen it by double teaming and coming to the assistance of people. So he scored basically 7 points a game. He had 1 rebound, and he had about 4 assists per game. John Paxson. Talks about Bill Cartwright. Is Horace Grant. Horace Grant was a power forward and sometimes a center. He was known as the general or the enforcer. He's a big, strong guy, 6'10", 215 pounds. He's a big, strong guy, and he took care of business. Oh man. Okay. Then you had Michael Jordan, which we all know, and Scottie Pippen, who we all know. So I just wanted to point out these guys on the team and just show you that Michael Jordan wasn't the only guy. And in fact, the Bulls, they actually did well without Michael Jordan. And I'm not saying that Michael Jordan was a bad guy or anything like that. He had his own way of doing stuff. But I'm just saying you guys are so Jordan centric sometimes. But you just you don't uh you don't credit where it's due. How competent these other Bull players were and how important they were to the team. And unfortunately, I'm just showing you stats, really, to just watch them play in the game, and you see so much more, you know. Um, as Horace Grant said, if you got past Jordan and Scotty, then you had to get past him. And if you got past him, you had to get past Greg Hodges, who was the center guarding the rim. So it's these things that I think a lot of people don't put in consideration. Of course, he also collected elbows and all kinds of stuff in that game because it was a rougher game, a more physical game than today. Anyways, that's what I got for you guys. I'll see you guys later. I'm WattUNeed. Peace.